I think your most popular video, or one of them, is how to respond to somebody when they're staring at you, like they have bad intentions. What's the best thing somebody can do in that situation?
There's an old saying, the only people who stare at you who overstare are either cops or criminals. So the cop is obviously staring you up and down to see if you're doing anything wrong. So if the person overstaring you isn't a police officer in a police uniform, then you're probably getting sized up by a criminal because it goes back to normal human behavior. If you and I meet on the streets, we look at each other for a split second, we break eye contact because it is weird and not normal human behavior to overstare. So if somebody's overstaring you, they're sizing you up. They're thinking, huh, should I go up and rob that guy? Should I follow them out of the Walmart parking lot to their car and carjack them? Um, Walking with confidence. Yes, that's the world's easiest thing. And yes, everybody's heard that a million times, but it works. Criminals pick up that sixth sense when you're walking with a purpose, move with a purpose. Also, when you look at them, again, you're not looking at them like you're like, I'm looking back at you and I'm angry, but you can look at them, acknowledge them, and just smile. Hey, how you doing? Because if a criminal is staring you down, you're like, oh my gosh, and start walking quickly, and you're like, oh my god, okay, you just made yourself look like the world's easiest victim, and now they know, okay, that guy's going to be a piece of cake, that girl's going to be a piece of cake. But if you look at them and you say, hey man, what's going on, or hey, how you doing? They're like, that guy spotted me. He's confident. He probably won't be the world's easiest victim. When my wife was in law school, we lived in Baltimore City, Maryland. Super dangerous city, super corrupt city. I hate that city. A lot of violence, right? Just always like one of the top 5 most dangerous cities in the US. Well, I was sized up all the time there, and I did just what I said multiple times. I was one of the few people I knew that was not robbed, didn't have their car broken into, or didn't have something happen to them.
I live in Baltimore City.
You do now? For some reason, I thought you lived in New York or something.
No,
Okay.
no, 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 no. No,
Wait, do you actually live in the city?
I'm like 15 minutes north of the city. We
Are
talked
you in?
about this, I think, didn't we?
All right. Wait. So where is it? I can't remember where you are. You?
Like Taos, like Lutherville, Timonium, like Towson area.
All right. Well, you're in the good area. You're not like Baltimore. I was literally in Baltimore City, in the inner city. So
That's funny. But so, like, what if somebody gives them like this awkward stare that you're talking about? Like, so is the best thing that somebody can do, like, do they run? If
I mean,
somebody,
just do what I said. You look at them, you acknowledge them. Hey, how you doing? And you keep walking confidently with a purpose. You don't walk faster. You don't walk slower. You just keep walking normal with a purpose, and you acknowledge them. So they're like, that guy already saw me. He already saw my face. He saw everything. I can't sneak up on him and grab him from behind or whatever.
yeah. And is there a way for people, like, do you have any tips on like posture techniques for how people should walk? I mean, is it like chest up, shoulders back, like stuff like that?
It is. It's what our moms told us 1,000 times that none of us still do. And we sit and you see me trying to do it here because I still slouch too much. But it really is pop those shoulders back. It makes you stand up straight. It makes you look confident. There was a famous study done. I want to say it was in the 70s or 80s in New York City, and they were these two psychologists took a bunch of pictures of people walking down the street, and they took these pictures into criminals in prison and said, "Who would you rob? Who would you mug? Who would you attack?" And they found out it had almost nothing to do with gender. It didn't matter if you were male or female. It didn't matter how tall or short you were. It was the posture and how they walked, how confident and straight up they looked. So that's one of the simplest things that any human being on earth can do.
You hear people talk about tricks like, if they have like a Rolex, they put a different band on it if they're in a big city to avoid being pickpocketed, or you'll have people have like a throwaway wallet that doesn't have anything in it in case somebody wants to rob them. They just throw whatever the wallet is to them that has nothing in it. Is there specific tips you recommend like that? Are those what I just shared is stuff like that valuable? What would you?
Yeah, I mean, it depends where I'm going, right? If I'm going overseas for some dump, I'm having nothing on me. I'm having no jewelry whatsoever, no watch. I carry my wallet in my front pocket. I will have, we call it a toss wallet, throwaway wallet. We call it a toss wallet. But I'll have a toss wallet that I can toss them that has 20 bucks in it. So going back to a lot of my customers that I do consultations with are very high net worth. I'm like, listen, when you go overseas, take off that fancy Rolex. Have your wife take off that giant diamond ring. Like, take all the stuff. You need to look plain and boring and average. Jeans and a t-shirt. That's it. So it definitely helps.
And let's just say you're being like chased. Like now, let's just say this situation has escalated a little bit, and you walking past them or walking away from them in that in a confident way doesn't help. Any tips for how to run or move when someone's chasing you?
Well, I mean, it goes back to going to a public place, going to a store, going somewhere if you see a security guard or whatever. Many years ago, long story short, two men tried to kidnap me. I took off running because I spotted it ahead of time. And when two people are trying to kidnap me, I can run very fast. So in this instance, I didn't have anywhere to go, meaning I didn't have any, there wasn't like a department store like Macy's or whatever. And I just outran them by just going to very difficult places. I mean, I'm weaving in and out of buildings and kind of like a movie thing, but without getting run over and that type of stuff. So when it comes to that, there is really no great answer besides be fast, try and zigzag and make it difficult to follow you. And then if there is a restaurant or somewhere with a big crowd, you can go to safety, obviously go into that.
I mean, this might sound stupid, but does like yelling help during situations like that?
People these days, unfortunately, people these days, right? They're so in their cell phones. They don't want to interfere in other people's business. I train people all the time in escape and evasion, anti-kidnapping. Train this woman and her husband. And I don't know if it was 6 months later after my training or a year later, two men tried to kidnap this woman at a gas station, right? Based on what I taught her, she was able to fight them off. She was fine. But afterwards, we talked about it. She said, Jason, I was screaming help. And when you told me that nobody would help me, I didn't believe it when you were training us and said that nobody would come. But nobody came to help me. She's like a small, petite, blonde woman. And she said I was 100% on my own. Everybody else was just like minding their own business, looking on. Nobody came in to rescue me.
Dang, that's crazy. That's crazy. So yeah, I mean, so is there any kind of like sign language or arm movements that you like kind of teach people to like?
No, I mean, I do a lot of self-defense skills. I mean, I teach them a tremendous amount on that. And that's what saved this woman. And I've had several students over the years who have used the self-defense to save themselves from attacks. Because also, when you are running and that full speed, you're not yelling anything. Meaning you're moving so fast, your mind isn't thinking to yell help. Your mind isn't thinking to do anything of that. And then if you, like this particular woman I mentioned, she couldn't get away the way they surprised her. She did fight them off and was safe. So it really goes back to know some basic self-defense, know where to strike the attacker. That stuff works. I mean, I had a young woman in New York City about 2:30 a.m., completely drunk, had left the club. Guy pinned her up against the wall and tried to rape her. She punched this guy in the throat because that's one of the things I teach. The throat is very vulnerable, no matter how big the guy is, no matter how strong he is. She was a young girl. This guy was twice her size. She punched him in the throat. He went down. She was able to run and hail a taxi cab who took her to a police station. So it goes back to simple strikes that anybody can do, because when you have that incident, you're not going to remember 37 karate, judo, chop, ninja moves. You're going to remember, all right, punch him in the throat type of stuff.
And I know you teach self-defense stuff, and people may be listening to this or watching this, and they'll say something like, well, that'll never happen to me. Like I live in suburbia, I have dogs, or whatever the example is, like a 60-second elevator pitch to why everybody should, be skilled in some level of self-defense.
I obviously hope it never, ever happens to you. I hope it never happens to anyone listening. I've trained thousands of people over the years. A small number have used what I've taught them, the self-defense skills to save their life. And the problem is, out of those thousands of people, that tiny number, you don't know whether you're going to be the thousands who it never happens to or that tiny number. So I've trained billionaires. I've trained just average Americans next door. I train people, again, who've got tens of millions of dollars and people who are barely scraping by. And all varieties have been attacked. So it doesn't matter your net worth. It doesn't matter if you live in inner city Baltimore. It doesn't matter if you live in Beverly Hills. I've had people from all walks of life, and they've had these bad things happen, but they survived because they knew the self-defense skills. So that annoying thing we always see on the news when a bad thing happens, they're like, oh, this neighborhood is safe. I never imagined anybody attacking in this neighborhood. Well, everybody says that, but it can happen anywhere. So pray it never happens to you, but just think, yes, it could happen to me because it happens all over this country.